Good evening. You are listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. I'm broadcasting to you from the Extreme Studios in the Pine Hills Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I have from the great Midwest with me my co-anchor at this time, RDB, and we're going to be discussing Extraction 2, the action film on Netflix that just currently came out. It's obviously punctuated by a 21-minute action scene that we're going to dive into. And generally here on the Extreme Movie Show, we love, and let me emphasize, love action films. And while Canon Classic gets a lot of love from us from the 80s, it makes us want to find good stuff lately. And not too long ago, RDV, you and I had covered the original Extraction, even though it had been out for a while, and we were craving action, and we were talking about the Mission Impossible films, and we were talking about what works and doesn't, and we do that a lot. But when I watched this movie, Extraction 2, my first thought was, I got a lot of gore, I got a lot of violence, and I loved it, and I got more of it, and I got my really long takes, like I've always told you about how much I love. To me, this is a better movie than John Wick, and that may be blasphemous for some people, but I thought, what a time for us to sit here and go, man, they don't make action movies anymore, but then you have some of the ones that are made, whether it's John Wick or this one, they're done so technically well, it's almost too good. This one I like for certain reasons. I'll get into over John Wick in terms of preference, not to say John Wick's bad, but I definitely am looking forward to talking about some of the scenes because in some ways, and I think one of the questions we do have to at least explore a little bit tonight after we talk about it is this better than the original Extraction? What's your initial thoughts?
Um, I didn't like the fact that there was a lot more gunplay in this than the first one. The first one, the kid was annoying. He had to hit,
Yeah.
yeah. But this, we get a basically a Rocky for a training montage, which is awesome.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
we get helicopters, we get RPGs, we get a train, we get every sort of action you'd want from a movie. Uh, Hemsworth is pretty much proving that he's not just Thor. He can actually do some action movies. And I remember the 2000s. I can't help but compare some of these movies to when you had like other like good wrestlers, be wrestlers trying to transition into like action heroes, Stone Cold Steve Austin,
Hmm.
and then it's like you start seeing some of these movies and you're thinking like, oh, it's a dime a dozen, but this was actually really kind of cool, and I love the believability about some of this, like basically they broke this family out of prison. Now they're being chased by the uncle's goons and stuff because once
Yep.
revenge, you killed their brother, and so they're trying to get out of the country. And any movie you have, whether it's James Bond or not, where they're trying to get out of the country, like there's always something that's going to happen. And of course, they do the whole cliche thing, which it really irritates me, is that the kid has been brainwashed. So he was like, "Oh, I want to be. I'm avenge my father. You killed my father. Why doesn't Dad come along?" So he calls his uncle, and of course he finds him, and they made it to Austria, which I thought it was like, okay, that's cool. But I'm like, I was wondering, like, they've got guns and they're into another country. It's like, are they doing this illegally? Well, of course, we find out at the end, yeah, because when the police and stuff come up after it's all said and done, like they're arrested, they're in prison. But the
Hmm.
thing that surprised me the most is the surprise actor in the very beginning who comes, basically, and I believe it's Idris Elba, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Idris Elba just comes out of nowhere and he's like, "I got a job for you." I was like, what? Like what? Idris Elba's in this movie? I'm like, sweet dude. Uh, and of course they no they are going to make a third one, and Idris Elba is going to be in it as well. But this was like a straight up really good action film. Um, it's kind of hard to compare it to the not James Bond, but the Tom Cruise Mission Impossibles. But almost want to say it's kind of up there with some of the crazy stunts. There's a scene if you just watch the trailer, you see him where they're on the glass. He goes to see the girl.
Yeah.
Gulch. Gulshitev. I don't want to butcher her
Her.
name, but yes, yes. She was a handler from the first film, and then she's knocked out. She's sliding off this building, and he basically Chris Other shoots the window, jumps out, grabs her, and then he shoots the thing they're sliding on, so he can grab onto the beam, and he's holding her, and like there is some really cool stunts, helicopters crashing. Uh, I mean, there's some CG, but not a lot. I mean, you were talking about earlier about there's a scene here where his arm is on fire and he's just punching a guy.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about it
uh,
here in a minute.
I mean, the prison. Whether you're talking about the prison fight scene, getting out of going to the main courtyard, while during the prison riots, the train, uh, going into the helicopter, like I said, the fact this is awesome movie, it ends. The fight scene ends in a church, like just
Yeah.
being restored. It's like, and I just kept thinking about this, like, how is he gonna get out of this at the end? It's like he's a independent contractor. He has no ties to the American government. So I'm like, I kept thinking, like, if this dude gets caught, he's done. He's gone. There's no one to pull him out. They're like, he doesn't have any friends in high places.
Mm-hmm.
So having Idris Elba in this, was like, I kept thinking, like, we saw him in the beginning. He's hired to do this, and like to get this family out of prison. And okay, we're like, okay, is that done? He's done. We're not going to see Idris Elba. We see him at the end of the movie to set up the third movie. I'm like, I'm really just peeking, man. Just watch this. I got done about an hour ago, and now this is like an hour and almost. Well, on Netflix it says 2 hours.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's obviously it's an hour and 40 minutes.
I think it's it's one of those movies
minutes?
that, because it's got some of these really long takes,
Yeah.
the time gets off. But when you think about it, not really a lot of things happen. There's a lot of action, but it's basically like a real time shot or two that you have. So it doesn't seem like it takes place over a long period of time where you have
John
that.
Wick thing almost, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think with John Wick, like I say, is it can almost go too long, and it's a bit too much guns. And here you have a variety of violence, which is key. And one of the things of this movie is, and I know Ed's in chat talking about he'll watch Extraction 1 first for context. I think it's a slight improvement because there's some variety in Extraction 1 in terms of different types of fights that I really like. And in Extraction 1, one of the scenes in particular you and I talked about was the fighting while everybody's like driving by on on those little small overstuffed mopeds, motorcycle type things in the street. That's cool and creative. And one of the biggest differences between John Wick and the Extraction movies, I will say, is this. And for me, I prefer here rather than the John Wick. The John Wick, the way it's shot, even though they'll do long takes, is the camera's kind of far away, so you get a view of all the action, all things happening. You have the great over the head shot of when John Wick gets on fire with those fire rounds in the house. That was really cool and artistic. But what's a little bit more visible and more real and more gutty, and I've always said that I feel like the violence just doesn't feel real in John Wick, like it's too smooth. And I think here in Extraction, even though it's too smooth, the fact that the camera is literally really, really close to him and what he's doing is pulling in and out, it's a little shaky, but it's not Jason Bourne vomit-inducing shaking. And the fact that it follows him around them and kind of looks around in a different areas like we would want to look at helps keep it fresh, like you're in the middle of what's going on. And so the big action sequence here that's going to get mentioned everywhere is this like 20-minute action sequence where he's going into the prison. It's cool because guard gets a payoff, and so the electricity goes out accidentally, and the guy's like, "You've got 5 minutes," and so he's got his light on, and he's walking through, and he's got to go pick up this woman and two kids, and they've got the UV stuff like that you can't see during the day, only when it's lit up or whatever, with arrows going to it, and he gets to it. And of course, it's not going to go well. He gets the wife, he gets the two kids, a teenage boy and a young girl.
Yeah.
I think the girl like dropped her like little toy and it squeaked or something.
Yeah.
Somebody saw them, and then they whistled and like, shit, it's on. And so what does he got to do? He's got to get out. And what was smart too is because he had his headpiece in his ear. You could hear him saying, "I've got this going on here." He's like, "Okay, we'll be there in 3 minutes. Okay, now we're at the front. Now we're going here. Oh, where do I need to go? I'm here." So it wasn't like these scenes where you cut to everybody working in the war room trying to explain and show shit. That's boring. I don't care about those.
No,
parts.
you heard him more
I
here.
want about the guy in the arena real friggin' time. I don't give a shit about anything else.
Yeah.
And so when the riot starts, then you're like, oh fuck, now it's on. And yeah, he gets bonked over the head and almost passes out, gets up, and his arm is on fire. That was hot shit. I'm telling you, that's the scene I'm remembering.
Yeah, and that scene where he gets hit over the head with the pipe or whatever, I'm thinking like, is realistically he would have been at the end of the movie, he would have been knocked out, and she would have been like, but somehow he's able to stay conscious, and like that right there is the John Wick scene for me, because that would have been a John Wick movie. Like he gets hit, but he's like, "Oh, I'm still up though," and like, so honestly, I gotta say, that was a little bit too unrealistic for me. But other than that, though, going
The
through,
arm being on fire, punching the dude, that's
oh
just
yeah, and like,
badass. Come on.
well, the thing is, like, he's like telling everybody stay back, and like they don't give a shit. They just instead of shooting, they just run towards him, and then he grabs his gun. It's like, but then you see later on though, he does the same thing. He shoots the guys in the legs. You know,
Yep.
I'm thinking, why didn't you do that before? I got unless you're trying to conserve ammo, but
Well,
like,
that's a
but
consideration.
but I love it though because this gives an excuse to do hand to hand, quarter close, close quarter
Exactly.
combat, and
Yep.
he's using the knife, and then he ends up using a thing, but like then you got the prison guards coming with the riot shields and they're knocking down. He's like, here, pull this pin. What? And he tosses it over and it just explodes and just like flashbangs.
Yep.
And like I said, it is. I did not know who was going to die in this movie, if there was even going to die, and like who would live. And it came really close. So it's like, man, I'm figuring at this point, like this movie's going on for like hour and 20 minutes. I'm thinking like halfway through, I'm like, someone's gonna die. There's no way. Like this crazy psychopath, because they explain two brothers. They fled some country back in the day when it was being raided over, and their dad raised them to be like badasses. It explains why the uncle, the one guy, he has hearing aids because his dad fired a gun next to him and caused him to go deaf. And so bottom line, the story is like his basically Chris Hemsworth is hired to by his ex-wife to get his sister-in-law and her kids out of the prison.
Yeah,
Like
it's a bit of a reach, but they should have more Olga. That's my only problem with
but
this
I
film.
love the fact it gave him a chance to explain, tie up loose ends from the first movie because we knew that about his kid, and his kid had cancer and he wanted to be there because so he fled. So anyway, he goes in there, and I'm thinking like, okay, like the mom's gonna die. Like even the scenes when they're running there, like before you get to the courtyard, it's like they push the kids up to the coach chute, and it's like and then her husband comes and attacks them, and then I love this scene like he's got the shovel and spade, and like he hits him in the hand, cleaves the guy's hand in half, just hanging, it's flopping, and then there's another scene where he's burning the guy's face on the boiler.
Yeah.
And finally, at the point where you just
they get in that room and you're like, okay, whose face is going to get on it?
Yeah. So I'm like, of course, you killed my brother. Now I send the whole family after you to kill you. Revenge, because he's crazy. It was just insane. And of course, this guy, like, he's the one mentor for this bad guy. He told him, he's like, dude, like, your brother, your father, look where he is now. Because this guy made a reference like, you're always like the Jimmy Cricket, man, he's always chirping, cricketing, it's like in my dad's ear, it's like and so the uncle like kills the guy. The guy's like, I always expected to die from a bullet, but not from you. And like if anything, you said like, I see you. I would have said like, I would see you in hell, motherfucker, because you're not gonna survive this movie. It was
another thing that was really good about all that though too is you two things really. One, you have to get the bad guy set up or whatever.
Yeah.
But you understand it, and I think you feel it. And I think this movie did a better job than the first Extraction movie. It kind of, having at least a tiny little bit of emotional connection to the good guys and bad guys. And it's not so much that we think the bad guys are bad, evil motherfuckers. We know they're competent. They're really in their background, because really the whole, I think, seriousness of what he got himself into is not the fights. It's the threat of the reach of everybody in that town, because these two guys are basically like gods to everybody. They're like, they can do no wrong.
They created their own cult. Forgot what it's called. They're like the Navga or something. That's
well, it's got a religious context to it, but they're not out there preaching and all this kind of stuff that you're over the top and you roll your eyes and go, that's stupid. Then the guys underplay it. They're kind of quiet, they're intense, but they don't screw around. And of course, the thing is one of the two kids that he has to rescue is like a preteen boy, like maybe say 12ish, whatever, like that. And this kid, as soon as you see him on screen, to your point you mentioned earlier, he's at that age where he wants to believe in his father, and so he thinks he's getting tricked. So he contacts the bad guys, even though he just got saved. And all of us, you're yelling at the screen, you dumb, stupid little motherfucker. What is your dumb ass problem? Get the fuck out of here. And you know what? The kid did a great job, because you kind of see him kind of being pulled in different directions and tweening, and where it's like he's not sure where to go, but damn it, he's got to do something just because. But but you're like, no, fuck you, punk. I want to see you get punched in the face. I want to see you die because you're a little asshole. Run after what everybody did to get your mom and your little girl sister out. This is how you're pay it. Screw you, buddy. I mean, so I give the kid a lot of props. He outkicked his coverage, if you know what I'm saying. Because I mean, you see him and you're like, oh man, I want to beat this guy up.
Yeah.
He did it with not too many words or crying.
Stand up for Yaz Khan, the brother of Nick, the one that's the one that was helping him. You knew he wasn't gonna make it this movie. I'm like, they're trying to get to secure the helicopter on top of the building. After the bad guys come, they attack them, and all these bad guys are wearing heavy just armor, like bomb armor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like these guys are here. It's just like a video game. It's just, if we talk about Nick, or was it John Wick being a video game? This is the video game I would think. I think it'll come all the time. It comes like Counter Strike or what was it? Those Crisis games you had with the guns. Yeah. So I think of those, and I'm like, oh man, and how do you take these guys on? It shows them, it shows other good guys shooting the bad guys. The problem is that they're all heavily armored, so like they have to like shoot them in the neck or like shoot them. I might think like go for the legs. If you go for the kneecaps, you can't really do much for you, so they actually end up knifing it or just like it's just nonstop. The whole entire the building there's that wasn't the hotel, but the building they're in Austria.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the scene there where he's Chris Hemsworth's fighting one of the guys, and he sees Nick. She's getting ready to fall off into the building. So he puts the guy, ties him to the exercise machine, shoots it, so he gets choked. The other guy gets crushed by the knee lift, for leg workout.
Yeah.
His head, it's just like it's just so gory, but it's like realistically, I'm kind of glad it wasn't just like 2 shots, farewell brothers, and then flies away. I love the fact that this was more. We're getting action movies that are a little more realistic. We reviewed it's Commando on Sunday.
Father's Day, it's taken off a little bit. People love a good action movie, right?
Yeah, yes. Commando, as much as the bullets are and everything, it wasn't as gory as like this is. Can you imagine if Commando actually would have been actually used real gun handling scenes like that, and just reloading stuff? I would be even more badass. But
and you look at Commando, we talk about there being a pivotal film, kind of half jokingly, even if you listen to our Father's Day review of it, which we do every year on the Xtreme Movie Show, you'll know that we use that film as a bridge between the hand-to-hand stuff that we got a lot of in the 80s to where it's transitioned more to big explosions and stuff. And so you could argue about how technically advanced these films are, like a John Wick. I still say John Wick is like all personality. It's like all sizzle and no steak, in that it's too smooth. You don't feel like John Wick's really getting hurt or brutalized. Here with Hemsworth, the opening bit where he retires to the cabin, you're like, okay, this is Rocky 4. Okay, he's gonna be chopping wood, and then I'm saying all this stuff out loud, and my wife's looking at me, and she's like, what do you mean? Watch. And then he's chopping wood. Oh, he's working the Prowler stuff. He's going to do the stones. He's going to build something. And he's making a wall. So even though it's coming, it's still cool. But you can buy him doing this physically. And he got the shit kicked out of him in the first film. Barely survived. So you get it. So here it happens again. You feel the brutality that he goes through. And that helps the action seem to be better to me. What do you think?
The first movie, like you said, the end of it, he's in a coma, result of it, because they say mentioned to save him after he's been shot, and the death, pretty much fell off a bridge. He's in a coma, so he's lost all this muscle stuff, and he's kind of feeling sorry for himself. She's like, "Why did you save me? Why did you save me?" And he's like, "Well, you'll know why. You're the one that saved yourself. There's a reason why you fought to stay alive. It's like you'll you find that reason, you'll know." And,
you know what? I want to interrupt for a second because what you're bringing up is a point I would have never remembered. In the hospital, and I'm mentioning how badly he gets beaten up, you actually, and this might be the only use of CGI that instantly came to my mind because it was done effectively, and this is how I think CGI should be used. remember he's in a wheelchair, right? So he's learning how to use his legs and walk again.
Yep.
His legs is atrophied. They have, of course, this big hulking guy stand up, and you get a back shot of him. And I think it's his left leg looks normal, and his right leg has basically got zero calf to it, like it's been shot off or something.
Yep.
It's completely atrophied. And I went, ooh, and you can just tell that's a nice little touch to make you feel that. So I think that's a brilliant observation on your point.
Yeah, I said like the whole thing is like I'm like, is he gonna brood like he did in the first movie, like return to alcohol? No. Eventually leave after they was it Yaz and Nick take him to a cabin they purchased somewhere in the middle of nowhere. We're never told where. And I love how like he just like he's like, hey, he's like, is my dog here? He's like, or he's like, where are my chickens here? He's like, no. And Yaz is like, no, we ate them. He's like, what about my dog? He's like, you eat that too. He's like, yeah. It's like, and I love like the brother and sister relationship between Nick and Yaz in this movie. Like, you're just fun. I love them. So the heartbreak when Yaz actually like does all he can to basically save everybody in the building, and ends up dying. It's like and dies. He bleeds out in the helicopter she's flying, and I'm thinking like, oh man, this is not good. So of course, now she's gonna want to have revenge. Towards the end of the movie, you don't know when, but it's gonna happen. So they make it away with the mother and the child, the daughter, but the Sanglo or whatever Sango, whatever his name is, retard boy, decides, oh uncle, I'll walk to you, and then he's like, and while he's in the car while this is going on, everybody's having the biggest terrorist gunfight in the middle of Austria. The cops can't even handle. They even brought the SWAT, and the SWAT's getting taken out.
Oh yeah,
yeah. You see, he's like, oh, is he gonna kill my mother? He's like, well, if you stupid idiot, if you wouldn't have called him, you want if you didn't want your mother dead, you wouldn't have called. And like the kid realized, oh, I fucked up, really bad, fucked up. So he ends up staying behind after they flee. But I want to point out, the cops in this weren't necessarily like amateurs. In the helicopter, the sniper took out 2 RPG guys.
yeah.
Before the main bad guy took an RPG and said screw this and took him out. But like I say, like I was like, I've never seen that before, where like a cop actually gets up a lucky shot.
Well, the other thing too is that we don't really care about the politics of the background. It's just there. It's really a family story, is what it is. Even though it seems like a bit of a stretch. Hey, I got to get my ex-wife's sister.
Out of Georgia, yeah, Georgia prison, where it's like
Yeah,
the
I
most
mean,
harshest prison there is.
it's simple. It's effective. It was shot over in Czechoslovakia, I think, so it's got that natural look to it. But for me, honestly, we spent all this time talking about this big 21-minute action scene that everyone keeps talking about or mentioning how it's it's the apex of action cinema and all this fancy ass crap. To me, the best stuff is on the train. Um, I'm obviously a big, huge James Bond fan. I'm not a fan of the Craig movies and what's going on with them, not necessarily because of Craig, but because of the directions of the films, and of course, killing him off, which is asinine. But I've always had mentioned back then that I've appreciated like the Casino Royale. I think is a fine film in its own right, and I actually don't mind the water one, as I like to call it after that. That Olga's in, by the way, his wife, ex-wife in here. But there's an action scene, I believe it's in Skyfall or Spectre, one of them, where they're on the train, and Dave Bautista, the ex WWE wrestler, is playing, a quiet kind of henchman there too, and they get a fight, and it's a nice little action bit, especially for James Bond, because James Bonds are all about how cute we can get, how much we can pop ourselves, rather than being gritty and gutty or pertinent to the story. And here you get an extraction too, where they actually continues not just from there, but like getting onto a train to the point where they land a fucking helicopter on the goddamn train. And he goes back and forth from shooting stuff in the trying to protect people,
Yep.
climbing up top, using the big 50 cal kind of thing, a la Rambo, shooting at it. I'm like, this is so much better done to me than John Wick, that I'm emotionally invested in it. John Wick, it's like, okay, I'll sit back. It's like a math equation, doesn't mean anything. But Extraction 2 is like the same thing, like Calculus 2, but you've got dollar signs in it. You see it in your bank account, you're like, fuck yeah, it means something. And that's kind of like the difference I want to make, because you don't have to see, in my opinion, Extraction 1 to enjoy this film. It might make a little bit more sense. You might understand the character better, but I actually think overall they improved a little bit of what they had in the first one. And I have not looked this up, to be honest with you, but I thought, shit, after the success of the first one, why didn't they put this on the big screen? Holy crap, they could make so much more money. I just,
I, I,
I don't get it.
I think the reason they did not put it on the big screen because it's the same thing with a lot of movies. There's a lot of people who just don't go to theaters anymore.
You think so, though?
I think
They
because I
do
think
for action. Mission Impossible is going to crush it. I mean, come on. We're waiting for that to come out so we can talk about it.
I mean, I am a perfect example. I used to go to theaters all the time, and then even before COVID, like it was got to the point where there wasn't that many movies coming out that I was really excited to go see in the theater.
Right.
So it got to the point where I was like, it's just like, okay, I'll just wait till it hits DVD, and maybe it's just because I'm getting older. I realize like there's certain things you should watch on the big screen, and some movies you just don't really need to. Um, this movie I would have watched in theaters. I thought it was pretty good. But I do like the fact that this is a Netflix movie. A lot of times we get Netflix movies and they're not really that great. Like
They're
we're getting
trash,
like
let's be honest.
we're getting like Adam Sandler movies, which are horrible. They haven't Adam Sandler hasn't made a good movie since Happy Gilmore or even what was the Wedding Singer.
You know,
Yeah.
I still watch You Be Halloween, and I don't know why, because I'm shaking my head going, why is this on?
But you pointed out something earlier. Olga Kurylenko. She was last time I saw her. She was in was it Quantum of Solace?
That was her.
She was a Bond girl.
That's right.
And then, yeah, she's also in the Hitman.
Yep.
But there was another movie recently she was in with
that computer game that Marky Mark was in with the
Oh,
real-time bullet stuff. I
oh.
think she was in that.
No, as a different one. I'm thinking of the one with Pierce Brosnan. November Man.
She was in she was in one with Pierce.
Yeah, she was the prostitute. Yeah, went to get revenge. Anyway, it's good to see her in more movies. I mean, she's a good actress, beautiful looking lady. I love to see her more action roles, but she basically plays Chris Hemsworth's wife in here, Rake's wife, and they finally, because after he brings the kids, the wife and the daughter to the cabin, she shows up and he's kind of just standing out there. It's kind of awkward because the last time he saw her is when their kid was dying in the hospital. He left.
Yeah.
So it's like he's like, "What did you do?" And like eventually she confronts him. He's in the kitchen after he has the coffee. She's like, "Why did you leave?" And he tries to make all these bullshit excuses, but he says, "Finally breaks out." He says, "It's one thing I couldn't fix. I can fix everything else, but I can't fix my kid from dying."
It's guy response.
Yeah, it is. It's I thought it'd be like they're gonna make up, but no, because he's moved on. Obviously, they're hinting that him and Nick are actually an item. That they let you like each other more. She even comments, that it's like, you must really care about her, or she must really care about you to do all this stuff, And say with the bad guy, he's like, wow, to save her, to hold her, because he's holding out the building.
Yeah.
The building which are on, which I learned, I was looking up. There was on the giant building that they're on.
You mean with the glass fight at the
glass,
top?
Yeah, in Vienna, Austria. I just saw it as a DC Towers, which is in Danu City, and that is such a weird looking tower as it is, but it
is cool looking though.
Yeah, but I kept thinking like, oh, this is such a cool thing. It's like and it wasn't like skyscraper. It wasn't stupid like that. No, it wasn't no. But they had they're going through. There's a workout room. There's a pool room. Like all came to play with all the violence and the action. And I'm just thinking the last time I saw anything like it looked like this was maybe Fast and the Furious when they were in Dubai. We crashed the car through the window.
No, stop it right there. Just stop it. Don't bring that up.
No, I would say that was stupid. This was cool.
Yeah, and there's different things, like you mentioned with Commando. It's kind of silly, but that's the point. Is it's supposed to be kind of juvenile. What the whole thing with them explaining the whole backstory of him and his kid dying and all that stuff. It kind of makes sense because we got the occasional flashback of her on the beach. There's no bitching. There's no fighting. The dude's in pain. He's hurting, and that explains why he's got kind of a devil may care attitude in the first one. Which honestly, early on, I'm like, I don't fucking get it. You look like Chris Hemsworth. You're a Greek friggin' god. You got money and all the freedom in the world. And you're acting like a hurt little bitch boy. I didn't like that. But now you're like, oh, he feels a sense of guilt and responsibility and shame for what he did because he didn't know how to do it, and so him kind of getting dialed in is really the only way he can avoid the pain if you want to look at it that way. So that makes sense to your point that they included that to kind of go, yeah, we might want to just dive into that a little bit and explain it, and that'll be our character generation. And now let's get on to
What,
these
what's
incredible action
what's
sequences.
also really cool too is the mother in here, the one that's supposed to be like the uncle's, the mother he was trying to protect,
Right.
Mia's sister. She's actually a Georgian actress. So
Hmm.
they actually got like legit, it was just someone to pretend and be like, oh yeah, I'm actually from Georgia. No, like no, they actually got someone who actually is a Georgian model slash actress. See with the kids. I thought that was really cool. And bringing Olga in here, she's a Ukrainian and French actress. Bringing her in to be the sister, I was like, okay. So I'm like, who would they get in to do this? And like, oh, tied to his ex-wife. Um, so I like they actually took the time to actually like think it out. It's like, well, we're just not gonna get send like Sandra Bullock and say that she's a Georgian actress, or Georgian mother, or no. They actually took the time to actually cast someone who actually fits the role, looks the role. Um, so I mean, I like the fact that there actually was a lot of effort put into this movie. Um, Sam Hargrave is going to return for the next film
Hmm.
for number three. And it was written by Joe Russo, the Russo brothers. It's another reason why it was so great.
Oh, yeah, they've done some stuff. I mean, well, the thing with action overall, I mean, we talk about how there's not really a lot of it, or the CGI variety in a lot of movies today. I could care less for it. It's meaningless to me. And
Yeah.
here, like I say, John Wick has a certain kind of technical craft for it, and I guess it's enjoyable. Obviously, it's done very well. I think it's blown up from what this small first film of John Wick was, and everybody loves Keanu. That being said, I thought Scott Adkins stole that movie. To me, this one, I had to think for a little bit after watching Extraction when I watched it, like I said, a second time to go, no, I get what they're doing here now. They're really giving us the
Well,
good shit, and it just feels real, and it's not easy. It's not
no,
supposed to be easy. It might
this
look easy, it might be tough, but like I say, he takes the friggin' beating. You're watching it. You're exhausted watching it. You're not sitting there going, okay, this is great. Okay, here comes another 10 guys. So Keanu will, time, dropping
no,
this between
and that's
getting
the thing with
that, and
John.
that's
Yeah,
it.
John Wick was all about showcasing the guns.
Yeah, yeah.
This is actually had more to it than just the guns. So, but speaking of the guns on the train, he's using that 50 cal, and just basically we saw Arnold, same thing.
Yep.
He's got the bullets, except that he actually runs out of bullets.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I just love it. This I'm just thinking the whole train scene. I'm thinking like, and then after because the brakes are destroyed, obviously because the fight scene, and many times I thought that actress, Nick, she plays Nick in here. I thought she was gonna die at least three times, on on the train, and then you see her in the actual in the the building. She's about to fall off, and then you see it like in
I'm not
the end of
killing
the
a woman in
church.
that
You
film.
know,
Come on.
well,
Come on.
they did. Yaz did, and then he paid the price.
But Yaz isn't a woman.
No, but no, Yaz killed the woman guard,
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm just
terrorist.
saying that not they weren't going to kill her.
No, I know, I know. I'm just saying, it's like it's just kind of so funny though. It's like I'm like, man, because she's the bad guy shoots her at the end. She's laying there. I'm thinking like, and the kids put he put the pressure on her shoulder, like to keep the blood. And I'll try to hold the blood and stuff. And the other thing is like, because now this is the most disappointing for this movie. Like I've liked it all the way through, but the ending part is okay. So basically, he has to go meet the guy at the airport. The guy's like, let's settle this man to man. He's like, his guy's not gonna leave. So they go there. He uses the grenade launcher, blows up all their planes, the
Yeah.
cars. They can't leave. That was badass. Uh,
And they
and
shoot cars and moving cars in here, by the way. Thank you.
yes. And so basically, yeah, they end up having a fight in the church, but only and it's Chris Hemsworth, the main bad guy, and then Sango, who's basically like got a suicide vest on him. And I love how I'm like, fucking coward, and then Chris Hemsworth's like, you're a coward. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
using that
Yeah.
kid, the gun, to pull the gun
Yeah.
at me, and the kid refuses to pull the trigger. I was disappointed that vest didn't come into play anything else. I would have been like, "Here's the vest, catch it, explode." That would have been so Arnold. He's like,
But this movie is not, which I'm thankful for. And so I think big picture here, we do have a little bit of different styles in that, and a lot of people are trying to not just in action films, but some of these others have some of these longer scenes to kind of show off a little bit. I mentioned a few other films that have it. John Carpenter's known for having it when they did the fisticuff scene over in They Live.
"Yeah,
Children of Men has a very long one in it too, which is one of the last really good science fiction movies, in my opinion, out there. It's probably 15, almost 20 years ago, with Clive Owen, the guy who at the time I thought should have been the next James Bond. And so I'll say this: obviously, we got the Mission Impossible movies coming up, and we're used to such a high standard and being blown off our asses by it. Like we go, okay, is Mission Impossible coming out this year? Okay, at least we'll get to see one good action film. Between this and John Wick and now Extraction, even though it's on Netflix, man, it's almost like a mini renaissance here. So I hope we enjoy it, because this is not the norm. And I will say this: I, like many of you, think very highly of Harrison Ford in the first Indiana Jones movie, and no matter what you think of the second one, we all love the third one, and some of us may whatever about the fourth, right?
yep,
And I get that he's 80. I get that they de-aged his face. I'm trying to give it every possible ounce of breath in my body, so some meaning. I'm trying to give it.
it's gonna be mediocre."
I'm looking at this going, this looks absolutely horrible. Everything that's wrong. And look, I don't expect it to be the action on the level of this. It's not.
No,
But when I see that stupid little chase scene where they look like they're like jogging, and they're in those, little mini cars or whatever like that, and they're busy talking, the stupid stuff's going on. I'm like, this is going to be horrible. It's an
yeah.
embarrassment.
So
Um,
the
yeah,
way to sum up the Extraction movies, better than Expendables.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Expendables should have been. I don't know why they're in theaters. Those should have been like straight to DVD movies.
I'm going to disagree though. Now, people want to see them on the big screen. That's not true. I disagree totally. Um,
I'd say I maybe go to theater for MI7. If there's any theater,
take my money, Tom
yeah,
Cruise. I will be
dude,
there.
Mission Impossibles are the only movies you should be seeing in theaters. Don't even bother with these Warner Brothers or Marvel movies. A lot of them are flops. You know,
Yeah, they have been, but I'll say this in closing. Yeah, if you haven't seen them, check them out. They're definitely worth it. Obviously, they're going to stay on Netflix because they're a Netflix property. Obviously, this is like the diamond in the rough with Netflix, unless you somehow find something from another country that you happen to like, whether it was Dark from a few years back, which was pretty interesting, and a few other things or something. So what they lack in quality sometimes can make up for in volume. Bloodhounds is one you and I have debated about maybe considering, because that's done well and somewhat wholesome without being over the top graphically violent, and it's Korean. So it's about a bromance between two dudes that are fighters that know how to box really well, because they're not kickboxers, I don't think. And
yeah,
they get involved in the mafia, and that's what a bloodhound is: somebody that's a leg breaker, a goon. And it's surprisingly watchable, which again is against the norm for Netflix. But the action stuff's out there. You got to seek it, and that's why a lot of times on Tuesday nights here on Extreme Movie Show, we like to dig out the action. Of course, we'll cover anything, but that we have a fondness for it. And I think sometimes our more fun reviews and exciting ones are when we do action. But yeah, overall, like this film a lot. In many ways, I think it's a little bit better than the first one. I enjoyed the first one. I think this is a slight improvement. I think they got just about everything right that you need to do in a sequel without being ridiculous. It's not like Moonraker ridiculous, but it's definitely bigger and badder than the first one to me. But the first one's worth it. Hemsworth doesn't have to say too much. I think it's better when he doesn't talk and you could just watch him do his thing. He's a great actor that way. Um, and he's young enough where he could still be doing some more of these types of films. And you and I have even talked about Gerard Butler, and like with Kandahar's one we've been looking at here too recently, that he can do a lot of different things. And whether you laugh at him for trying to sing in Phantom of the Opera, a lot of people still like that. But he's done that. He's done dramas. He's done romance. He's done action. That's not easy to do. Hemsworth, I think, he's probably got a little bit more of a limited range, but this, I think he's found his calling, his role. He
I,
seems
I,
like he's at the right age, the right physique. It just works.
honestly, getting out of Disney, these guys usually kind of fall off the place here. There's like Disney kids. But
Exactly.
he's a Disney adult, so he's been in the Marvel stuff, Thor. So once that's done, he's pretty much, oh crap, what do I do now? Because I've only been known as Thor. Nobody really knows me anything else. And he's building up to, hey, I can do action movies. I don't need to be Thor. I don't need Disney. I can do stuff without them.
Yeah, not
And
kids movies, adult movies.
yes, yes, definitely, this is not Disney friendly at all.
Yeah.
Uh, so definitely check this movie out if you haven't to. If you have a Netflix subscription, you pretty much should be watching this because
Yeah.
there ain't much on Netflix to watch, But this is something you really do want to watch. Both of these movies.
When I looked earlier this afternoon at it, just reading up on Netflix, I noticed that Extraction, the first movie, had popped up there. So like I forget what the order was, but both movies were for me here in Central Florida for Netflix in this region.
Mm-hmm.
They were both the number one and number two films currently going on Netflix. And here's my last final thought, and then I'll hand it over to you. Is that we've talked about how great of a show that's on Amazon Prime, and that would be Jack Reacher because Alan is it Rickman?
Yeah.
He looks the role, lives the role, and is the role, and that's not a knock on Tom Cruise at all. Tom Cruise did
So
fine for what he did, but we talked about that here. Hemsworth is like a similar way. He is this kind of a role, and I think they found it. Now we might get tired of Black Op Merps guy, on the side doing these kinds of things or whatever, but they've got something here. And when you've got something, you try to improve upon it, you try to milk it, you just tweak it a little bit. You don't add too much to it, and to me, they've got something. Hopefully, they won't fuck it up. But if they keep the same people involved, like you said, the Russo brothers, that Sam guy that I think directed it,
Sam
who's a
Hargrave, yeah.
stuntman by trade, that's why we got a lot of these great shots in here. Then I'm looking forward to the third one that you'd already mentioned that's been released. But yeah, I agree with you totally. Check this film out. It's definitely a good film. Over the summer we want to see action films. We just do. Call it the sun, call it the juice, the energy out there. We want to see people getting their ass kicked, and you get a lot of that in here. And it's brutal, it's gory. There's a lot of celery crunching going on, the bones breaking. It's fun, it's enjoyable, and it's not a cute film either. So if you like your action cute, this ain't it. And thank God for that. Final thoughts, RDV?
Just quickly mention that there was a Netflix tease they had and Arnold and him and Chris Hemsworth in an elevator.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah. And man, Chris Hemsworth now he's not as ripped as Arnold was, but he's pretty much up there. Like I said, it gives me hope that we can get some more movies, like awesome action movies. And so far, we've gotten two from Chris Hemsworth. As long as he stays away from comedy, does serious roles like this, I think he'll be good. Yeah.
I agree with you totally. I hope he transitions to that big beefy motherfuckers. And we've not pulled the plug on talking about Fubar, the Netflix TV show, because it's absolutely atrocious. I think Arnold's got a lot of energy in it. His juice level's high. And I'm like, man, Arnold can still go. Too bad he can't find a better vehicle for crap because it has all the wrong things in it that you'll know what I'm saying when you watch it. That you go, yeah, this is crap. But Arnold still seems pretty good in it. And there's an Arnold like 2 or 3 part biography on there that if you don't know anything about him, it's a nice introduction to him. Of course, since Arnold had his hand into it, it's very pro Arnold, and Arnold's always been very smart that way. I didn't really learn too much that I hadn't, but they do go back to his hometown and show a lot of shots of stuff. They never talk about his drug use or how strong he was, because Arnold was a genetically very gifted individual strength wise. It wasn't just, I took steroids and got big like a lot of people think happens. So I think it's a very good propaganda piece for him, and hopefully between somebody like that and Hemsworth now, like you say, that it's a great commercial, it's done well. That's what you're supposed to do, elevate each other, not pop yourself at the expense of somebody else or take all the attention away. That is a commercial that's done right. So God forbid Netflix gets something right, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I said, like, obviously we know no one's watching The Witcher anymore. Cavill's out. You got rid of the big guy. Now you're gonna bring in some Liam McIntyre guy, which no one gives a shit about. Yeah. So definitely check this out. And then yeah, my 2 movies I'm looking forward to for me personally is Mission Impossible, it's coming up, and then Voyage of the Meteor.
Yeah, and so we'll be doing those as soon as they come out because we'll see those,
Yeah.
and also I'm sure we'll be doing Indiana Jones as well. We got a few short requests there too on our list that we're debating too. So yeah, good stuff there, guys. Check this movie out, man. It's a lot of fun. It's exciting talking about it. All right, guys. Thanks for everybody that showed up here on Tuesday night, checking us out here. It's always appreciated. Spend a little bit of time with us, talking over stuff. We really enjoy the engagement because we can talk about stuff forever, whether we have an audience or not. And that's why we hopped online, and now we have one. Let's do it. That's my attitude. So for RDV and Professor Pixel, everybody involved here at the Extreme Movie Show, thanks for watching, listening, and of course, have a good night. As always, stay extreme. What would Pixel say here? This is not a Dan Curtis production.